Hey everyone, today's probably the last day you'll see a Mordekaiser carry that's gonna be as strong as in this game. I know I posted the Mordekaiser video just yesterday, which was crazy because we hit Morde 3, but I was kind of sad that we could not show the whole game, you know. You guys arrived and we're already pretty late in the game. Therefore, I had another game this morning that I was playing, and we got the Legionnaire 8 trait, which is absolutely bonkers. It's so good it's getting nerfed, like probably as this video releases, it's already going to get nerfed. If you want more details about the B patch that's going to hit today, there's more information in the video down below or up here. I think that even after the nerfs, Legionnaire Mordekaiser is still going to be playable. Why? First of all, Legionnaire only gets really hard nerf on Legionnaire 8, which is not something you absolutely need to. 6 Legionnaire is fine. Although 6 is also getting nerfed, everything else around it is getting nerfed. And when I mean everything else around it, I mean like outside of the comp. Iron Volleybear is getting nerfed, Zig's getting nerfed, Ophelio's getting nerfed, LeBlanc's getting nerfed. So I think like the nerfs on Mordekaiser and Legionnaire won't push it out completely of the meta. I think it's still gonna be fine. Maybe not as much as like the last 48 hours or like as soon as people actually like caught on how strong it was. I'm glad I had time to basically abuse it because it's just very, very good. It's also a noob-friendly comp. It's not complicated. You just play a bunch of Legionnaires and you win. Like this is an oversimplification, but as you can see in this game, obviously you gotta scout. You gotta make sure that are you the only Legionnaire player. If yes, it's gonna make your life a lot easier. Also, you don't need to go for like 4 Legionnaires super early. You can go with a decent front line and like a Callista in the back. You can go with the Abomination also star, which is fine. If you go Callista, Nunu, Brand, and maybe another brawler, that's fine. If you can get Gragas or if you can get Warwick, that's gonna be fine. Warwick actually like does so much. I feel like it's not a like fantastic units. Like I don't think he's broken or anything, but he can actually carry some early game rounds. It's not even funny. I think in this game especially, like Warwick is gonna hit some crazy ults. So you start with a good front line, a good back line. Every single like TFT game ever, right? What you need to do though is as the game progresses, first of all, you gotta hit your target items. In this game specifically, we needed to wait for Gunblade, which actually like shows up kind of late. It was greedy to wait like the whole time for it. Honestly, I do not recommend holding on items that long. I don't think I played this game perfectly. Probably I could have managed with some other items, but we hit, you know. The biggest advice we can give you is like, just hit, bro. And we managed to in this game. We actually like you gotta recognize the patterns, right? Being good at League of Legends and being good at like, teamfight tactics is close enough. It's pattern recognition. You gotta scout. You gotta see what people are gonna play. You gotta see what units you're getting given basically, what hand you're dealt with, and then what items can you make. And there's no solution to that other than just playing a bunch of games. And eventually your brain is going to recognize some things. Like in right now, as you can see, we can basically build QSS right now. We still have a rod and we have a cloak. In this case, what can we do? We can go a Jewel Gauntlet, we can do a Dragon's Claw, we can also do the QSS, which is great on Mordekaiser. Even if we wanted to pivot out of Legionnaire, what can we do at this point? As you can see, there's some Rangers on the bench. It was just in case, because if we get a couple bows or BFs, then you can go Aphelios, because Aphelios with Ginsu, with Runons, with Deathblade, it's basically super good. I wanted to keep my options open, basically. We had decent-ish early game. We didn't lose a lot of HP, so I could afford to hold on to the items. I basically traded life for a hope of hitting the nuts, and in this case it paid off. Also, I did some funky leveling in this game. As you can see on like 2-6, I go for the level up basically just to keep my win streak alive. It's not something I do often, especially since we're not at a state that it goes like flush. So it's not ideal, but like in this case, Warwick just absolutely carried the hell out of me. Maybe it was not necessary to go for the Cossacks, but having Dawnbringer really helps your Gragas. Like, he's so tanky with Dawnbringer and Brawler buff. I think it's like really hard to kill. Speaking of early game boards, I really think Knight is kind of overvalued. It's really not as good as just having like good units. Cavalier is super strong if you can get like an early sesh with Kled. I think it's kind of underrated. Or instead of Kled, you can go Hecarim, or basically whatever like 2 early Cavalier. They make for a great front line. Knight is fine if you can. Like in some cases, if you go Vayne or you want to have like a Forgotten start, then going Knight with Thresh is fine. But you can also do Forgotten with Hecarim. So you have a lot of options. One thing that is crucial if you're going to go Legionnaire is that you need to scout often, because it's a comp that's actually hard to hit if like 2 or 3 players play it. You need such a restricted amount of units. It's a comp that's hard to be flexible on the units you play, just because of the sheer amount of Legionnaires you need to enable Mordekaiser. It is very different than playing, let's say, Vel'Koz or playing Aphelios, where you go with a good backline and then a good front line. There's like the ideal scenario that everything fits perfectly together and you're just like gonna murder the lobby. But they're also much more flexible. If you go with Aphelios, you can just have like strong frontline that don't even synergizes with him that much, and it's going to be fine. It's not going to be ideal, but it's going to be fine. When you go Mordekaiser, if you don't hit the Legionnaires, it's going to be really hard. The attack speed is just so valuable to make sure he procs his spell as quickly as possible, and then that he swings his hammer as fast as possible. Especially since he does a bit, like, he has a hard time against like scaling comps, and by that I mean, let's say like a Kyle that has Ginsu, or a Philios that has Ginsu, or Jax is more often than not is going to be difficult with that. Now on 3-2, I actually got a hard choice. I had to choose between Bow and Rod. And why did I go Rod here? It's pretty easy. I went Rod because I knew at this point in the game that there was like no other Legionnaire player, right? So at this point, I know I can go for the Mordekaiser carry and actually hit. And you can see that I sell my Rangers at the same time, because like at this point, I'm committing to the comp like fully. I slam items on Yasuo, which is probably always gonna be your item holder for Mordekaiser. And we basically just committed there. So the Rod is actually much better because I could do Jewel Gauntlet, you can do Death Gap, you can do Gunblade, you can do a lot of things with it. It's just super good on Mordekaiser and in the team, so I had to go for that. The Bow would have been much better if we wanted to pivot out of the comp that, like the early comp that we had, and we wanted to go maybe more towards an Aphelios or more towards a Ranger, or even like towards Heimerdinger, because we could have hit Ginsu, which is just a fantastic item. Turns out it's pretty strong to gain like infinite attack speed. I don't complain though. Ginsu is my favorite item. It's been since set 1. I just love stacking attack speed. I don't know why, it makes me feel like super strong. I think it's just really fun. You know what's even more fun than stacking attack speed? Playing 8 Legionnaires and have like 250% attack speed like from the get-go. It's really cool to see like all of your units attack like super fast. Attack speed for me is like, it's my favorite characteristic, or like stat rather. It's just so fun to see people attack quick. I don't know why. I've always shied away from like Vel'Koz comp or like mage comps, just because, not because they're not strong, but I prefer having like 80 people that attack fast. Like it's this, I'm the same in League of Legends. I play like Nocturne, I play Volibear, I play people that are mostly AD. In this case, Volibear is not AD, but you get the point, like a Hecarim or basically any AD bruiser on the top lane. It's just, I much rather be an AD champ. Mordekaiser is AP though, so this is quite different than usually, but it feels like a fighter anyhow. It doesn't feel like a mage. When he goes around and swinging his massive hammer, it really feels like it's not a mage, you know. So we get to the carousel, right, on 3-4, and unfortunately Mordekaiser was taken away, which is fine because he had a chain vest, which is kind of not ideal, and it allowed us to get the infamous BF sword to go Gunblade, and now at this moment in the game, our HP is good. We have 84 compared to like 34-ish, 40-ish people that are already in the bottom, which is not good. You don't want to be solo at this point in the game. And we've hit all the items that we need. We have Gunblade, we have QSS now, and we even have 2 ice cream cones. Like if you guys can actually see, like we don't have a second one yet. But ice cream cone's not mandatory in the comp. It's not great actually. Like I mean it's good. It's definitely good, but it's not the most broken thing. If you have to choose like between a cone or like frozen hard, you definitely go frozen hard on Diana because it's really, really important. But we got hyper lucky. We omega high rolled this whole game basically on items. We had really good items on really good units, and we've even hit Legionnaires bat, which is just absolutely bonkers. So it's going to be really important with this comp to position correctly. You'll see as further as the game goes, the more your positioning is important, especially when you have like Diana Viego backline. I mean, when I say backline, I mean assassin, you know, that's going to dive their backline. It's really important to try to hit the Diana where she's going to have like her range of frozen hard on the actual carries on the other side, which is not as easy as it sounds to, because your opponents will try to do exactly the contrary. Every time you move, they're going to move. So you have to pay attention. You have to scout. And when you don't know who you're going to play against, you basically go with odds, right? If there's 3 opponents that have their carry on the left, then you try to hit that. Even if there's like 2 others that have carry on the right, if you don't know who you're going to fight, then you just go and try to roll the odds basically. And I think the stage 3-6 is the perfect example of that. We just moved our Kazakhs right to the left because I realized that a lot of the carries that my opponents were playing were to the left. There was the Ziggs to the left, there was the Varus to the left, so we just moved it and made sure that he could actually like target the target that was the bigger threat, the biggest threat. And it allowed us to just win a couple rounds, get more life, get more econ. It's really an undervalued skill. Every single great TFT player will tell you positioning matters, being flexible matters. They are not wrong, but what's the biggest mistake new players make is not care about positioning. First of all, it's probably not because they don't want to. When you're learning a set, you have so many stuff to learn. I think like if we go to my insane like 16 win streak game that we had the other day on YouTube, my positioning is basically trash. I almost never move my units, and it's not fantastic. Same thing for like the Mordekaiser carry that we had before this game. It was not insane. Because when you're learning a new comp or a new set, you're focused on the micro, right? Which units do I need? Which units my opponent have? What items do I need? What do the shadow items do? So you have to learn, you have to educate yourself on the set on the outside of the game so that when you play, you're ready and you don't have to think about all these things. You don't want your mental space to be preoccupied with these kind of stuff that you need to know like on the tip of your fingers. You really need to focus on scouting and positioning. All your mental energy has to go there. You don't want it. You don't want to skip units in the shop. You don't want to think too much about these kind of things. You want it to be basically muscle memory at that point. And as soon as you hit Mordekaiser in this Legionnaire comp, you're basically like guaranteed top 4. It's just that good, especially if you have 6 Legionnaires. It's not hard to hit 6. It's a lot harder to hit 8 because you need Kyle and you need a spat. So that's going to be a lot harder, but hitting 6 is actually like kind of easy, honestly. It's not going to be super hard. And as soon as you have that and some items on your Mordekaiser, he's just gonna like murder everyone, and you're guaranteed top 4. I think one of the key thing with the comp is if you have enough HP and you have a strong board, which is basically as soon as you hit Morde, you have a strong board, almost like him by himself, right? You need to try to get to level 9 if you can. Not because you need the additional unit, which is great because usually you can just slot in Viego and now you have the assassin buff for your Diana and you have Viego that is just strong by himself, especially if you can two-star him. He's just a very good unit to have on the enemy backline. but it's because you hopefully want to hit Mordekaiser like 2 or 3 if you can. 2 is mandatory. 3, it's if you're lucky, like we were. Not in this game, but like we were in the other one. If you're lucky, then that's great. But you want also 9 because you want the Kyle as much as possible. It's just such a better unit than the Callista. And what did we learn from the game yesterday, where I actually like did not go Legionnaire 8? It's that I sold the Callista as soon as I put the Kyle in. And in this game, we did not do that. We actually saved Callista, and we hit the spat later in the game. It actually like happens more often than you think. Spatulas are kind of common if you know what to look for, and you don't need bows basically in this build like ever. Therefore, you can keep the bow for the Legionnaire. In the case where you don't hit the spat, you can just give Ginsu to your Kyle late game, and it's going to be a second carry. You can give Ginsu to your Draven, that's going to be a secondary carry. Because what's great about Mordekaiser in this case, and I think it's still going to be strong even after the nerfs, guys, is he's a carry, but he's also a frontline. Which is quite the opposite of, let's say, a Philios or LeBlanc or any kind of squishy carry. He does both at the same time, so that allows you to play a secondary carry that can do work without actually like feeling threatened. And even if the people like kill my Draven, like who cares? He's not the one actually like doing mad damage, right? It's the Mordekaiser. It simply helps because the passive damage that's going to be added is going to help a ton. And as soon as like one unit dies, I feel like Mordekaiser just becomes insanely more valuable because he basically one taps people. So as soon as you can get rid of the CC, especially when you don't have like the shadow QSS that prevents CC for the whole duration of the fight. If you have normal QSS, eventually you'll be able to be stunned, and ideally you want the units that will stun you to be dead. And how do you do that? Well, with 2 carries, it's going to be usually pretty easy. If you can get a strong Raven and a strong Mordekaiser, there should be no reason for the front line or like the Kennen or the Rel to survive that amount of damage. So this is pretty much it with the comp. It's not rocket science. It's one of the easier comps to play. I strongly recommend it if you can, if it's still viable after the nerf that's gonna get deployed later today. I strongly recommend you guys to at least just try it one game and see. I was very skeptical at first, but as soon as I tried it, it's like it's telling. You just watch Mordekaiser like do so much work, and how can you not be convinced? I think the stage 4-5 is actually like a super good example of like why vehicle positioning matters. He was right beside the Draven, so not only does he stun the Draven, and then you gain the Draven. In this case, like gaining the Draven was basically no advantage whatsoever, but stunning him was crazy good. He could not ramp, he could not do anything, and it was really useful before we actually hit Mordekaiser 2. As you can see, even Morde 1 just slaps really hard. So the nerf on Morde 1 that's gonna hit us, that's 50 damage. It's basically 50 damage on level 1 and 50 damage on level 2. They're gonna hurt. Like 50 doesn't sound a whole lot, but more often than not, if you don't get the kill, he's gonna have a hard time. I think in this case, the nerfs were warranted, and since everything else gets nerfed, I know I'm repeating myself, but I still think it's gonna be quite valuable. Legionnaire 8 is definitely not gonna be something we have to target. I think actually I think just keeping the Legionnaire 6 and go for better units is going to be more useful than using the spat on Legionnaire and slotting the Callista for the 8. I don't think Callista is that good at this stage of the game, so going for either something that's more mystic, or even if you can slot in an Ironclad if you're level 9, I think it's going to be much more valuable than just going for Legionnaire 8, because the nerf was absolutely massive. They do not want people to have 250% attack speed, which is completely understandable when you have Mordekaiser and Kyle that both share the trait. So how do you play Legionnaire without the 2 additional units that's gonna play Legionnaire 8? Usually you put the Legionnaire spat on Diana. You want to keep Diana. Why? Because she goes to the backline, and with Frozen Heart she basically neuters everything your opponent wants to do, right? It's just insanely strong. it gives you basically everything you want on a champion. It's just absolutely insane. Like, not only does she have assassin and neuters completely a backline, she gives the Dragon Slayer buff to your Mordekaiser, which is definitely important, especially now with the nerf. You absolutely need it. It allows him to be very strong. So you want to keep the Diana, which means you want to pair Diana with Viego. Late game is just the best combo there is. It gives you CC, it gives you damage. It's basically everything you want to be. So now that we have basically all of our units, who replaces Callista? I think in this case, you can either try to hit the redeem. If you hit the redeem, it's going to be good for your Kyle. It's going to be good for your Aatrox, even though you don't really care about Aatrox. Redeem is kind of a strong trade if you have like nothing else to do, right? Dawnbringer is okay-ish if you can get Garen. It's gonna give you like a better front line. If you have Garen with the Dawnbringer activated because of your Riven, then you get one more frontline unit. I really think Garen is kind of underwhelming being like the face of the set, right? It's all about like Garen Darius, and I feel like it's all about Volibear, Ivern, and Heimerdinger. No one cares about the God Kings. Even though they have their right comps or they're strong, I think Darius in a Aphelios comp is mega strong. It's not what I expected when we saw the set announced, right? So keep that in mind. Keep an open mind about new comps. If I can end this video on one tip, is that whenever you see something new pop up, let's say I'm gonna take myself as an example. I saw people mentioning Mordekaiser carry is no joke, guys. And at first I was like, don't really want to try it, you know, I don't feel like it. And then one game we just basically were given everything to make it happen. Like, I had no choice but to try it because everything was perfect for it. Turns out it's pretty good. So keep an open mind. That's what I tell my players all the time is, guys, when there's a new mechanic or when there's a new strat coming out, your first reflex has to be, okay, let me try it out, let me see for myself, or let me see how it develops in the meta. Let me keep an open mind and actually try it, because whenever you just shut down something on the low, like on the only principle that it's new, it's a very bad habit in any video games. So that's about it for this video. Probably the last time you'll see a Mordekaiser being this strong. The Legionnaire 8 was absolutely humongous. 250% attack speed, rip. It's not gonna happen anymore. I hope you guys enjoyed this game, and I'll see you next time.